Good afternoon. Welcome back to another Team News live stream on Friday, ahead of a now Saturday deadline, of course. The deadline's not today, just in case anyone's happened to have missed this major news. It's now back to 11 a.m. tomorrow. So there's lots of stuff to go through today. Obviously, the big stuff's going to be Villa versus Newcastle, which is postponed, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But I'll first, of course, say hi to Neale. How you doing?
Hey Andy, sorry everybody that I'm a bit late today. It's my fault. It's not Andy's. I think there's about 7 or 8 press conferences at all up at 1 o'clock or 1:30. So I've just finished going through them all right now.
It's alright, everyone thinks it's my internet, that's the reason why we're late. But actually, as
Usually
bad
is.
as, yeah, it usually is, but not today. It's not the reason. But yeah, all good. We're still going to get through it. And we've got the extra time because of the deadline anyway. So let's just start off with Villa versus Newcastle. Because apart from speculation, I guess, in papers, we don't really have anything new, right? At the end of the day, it's postponed. We don't know if it's going to be put into next week, but it does seem unlikely, I would say, right?
Yeah, it seems unlikely at this stage. Although of course there can be stuff that happens after the deadline passes. At least you've got until 12:30 tomorrow. I know that Newcastle's training ground was going to be shut till Friday at the latest. Sorry, at the earliest. So that's today. So it's been down for the best part of a week. And yeah, of course, both clubs do have a free midweek next week, but just the ramifications of reorganising the fixture, TV schedules as well, of course, will dictate when a game will be played. So at the moment, we're just assuming that it's going to be put back till maybe 2021, because looking at the fixtures ahead and the schedules, there isn't another free midweek really until the turn of the year, because Newcastle are in Carabao Cup action, I think, after just before Christmas, just before the Boxing Day set of games, and then we've got like a midweek set of Premier League games next week as well. So, like in a fortnight's time. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be put back till 2021, as far as we know at the moment. What I'm going to do, which you're probably going to ask me before I jump the gun, but
Yeah.
I'm going to put I've got to play Grealish anyway. So I've only got 2 representatives from that match. One's Grealish, one's Lewis. He would have been benched regardless. I'll play Grealish. I'll start him on the off chance that the fixture is hastily rearranged for next week. And then if it doesn't, then I've got Souček to come in from the bench. I know, obviously, some people aren't as fortunate as that, because they'll have triple Villa and maybe a Newcastle player as well. And obviously, if you're in that situation, then you're going to have to offload one of them to get an 11 out. But maybe if you've got 1 or 2 players from either club, it's worth hanging on to them, because at the moment, Villa's on course for at least 2 double game weeks that we know about.
Yeah. So just really quick, because I've got 3. And I've got Martinez, Grealish, and Watkins. So it's a bit. I mean, if it was outfield players, it might actually be a bit easier to manage. So I'm probably not going to take out Martinez. I'm probably going to play with 10 men, just because, like you said, he has got 2 double game weeks to come now, and the fixtures are still quite good, at least in the short term. They got a really dodgy period over Christmas, like from game week 16 to I think it's 19. They played Chelsea, United, and Spurs and Everton in a row, which is going to be tricky. But his fixtures overall are pretty good, and he's going to have double game weeks at some point. So I'm probably going to keep him playing with 10 men, because I just think goalkeeper upside is so small usually. Obviously, you can get the 10, 11 pointers, but they don't happen that often. And then I'm going to bench Watkins and Grealish, because I just think I'm going to want to keep them. Obviously, everyone's team's different, and I'm in a position where I've got so much money in the bank I can upgrade Basuma to Jota, which is kind of very handy for me this week. But not everyone's going to be in that position. So I think depends how many you've got. I really, one thing I would stress for anyone that's still thinking about it is I would really try not to free hit, because I see people talking about that. And you're going to realise how handy that is in probably game week 18, but at some point in the future it'll be more handy than it is right now. So yeah, Neale had the foresight to wildcard and only get 2 Newcastle Villa players, and he knew this was happening. I will really quickly say the speculation that seems to be written about now is less the game being put into midweek, more that Newcastle West Brom might be called off. Now, I should say that I'm not trying to scaremonger. That's not 100% at all. We probably won't find out until after the deadline, even if that is a thing. But that's something to think about, especially if you're maybe, rather than worrying about the Villa players, if you're like a Wilson owner or something like that, maybe there's a little bit more reason to get rid, I guess. And obviously, people have been talking about getting Johnston in. He wouldn't be playing in that case. So yeah, I would definitely think twice about the midweek thing being a thing, because I'm just not sure it's going to happen, basically. So yeah, that's it. There is no real massively big new news for that. So we'll just move on with all the other stuff, because there's quite a few lineup issues and injuries and stuff. And we'll start with Spurs. And I mean, it's just classic Jose Mourinho at this point. Mind games. He's even talking about whether he's bluffing or is he double bluffing, isn't he? Yeah. So, I mean, what do we think? I think Harry Kane's going to start, right? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I think based on his comments, we've been here many times before. Just last week, actually, when he was talking about three of his players, Bergwijn, Lo Celso, and Lloris, who all missed the previous Europa League game, and then they were fine for the Chelsea match. We've been here before with his son, if you can remember. It was much more of a doubt, and then made a miraculous recovery. And look what happened there with these points haul. So yeah, Mourinho, by his own words, isn't trying to pull the wool over our eyes, but he's a clever man, and he has been known to bluff and double bluff before. He says that Kane's got a great chance, a good chance to be fit. He says, I believe he's going to be fit. That was his exact quote. Did say that he's not in big trouble as well, so it's not a serious problem. He wasn't pictured in training on, I think it was Wednesday, so this was when it first came out, this news. It was him, Vinicius, and Reguilon as well. Those three weren't pictured in training, and that's what prompted the question in his pre-Europa League press conference. So we found out then. Mourinho said all three would have a chance this weekend. Asked again about it last night after the 3-3 draw in Austria. He said that Kane, he believes, is going to be fit. So I'm putting him in my predicted lineups, for example, on the site. It's a North London derby. You know, if he's got any chance of being fit for that, he'll play, I'm sure. So yeah, if I owned him, which I don't anymore, I flogged him on my wild card. I would probably keep, because I think he's going to be fine. I mean, it could be just some, elite kidology from Mourinho, and he's really trying to hoodwink Arteta. But based on those comments, it sounds like he's going to be okay. And we'll keep an eye on any training ground photos and any other news coming out with Spurs the rest of today and before the deadline tomorrow. We won't hear from Mourinho again, though. He's the second part of his press conference after that Europa League game has come out at 1:00, and it was just mostly about the return of fans and how that will impact on the North London derby. So there was nothing in there about any more about the injury news, which we heard from last night anyway. So I doubt there's going to be anything to follow up on that. And no word on your man Reguilon either, unfortunately. Just what we went off on Wednesday evening when Mourinho said that he has a chance of featuring.
Yeah, I think I'm the only person that cares about him. Big question though is, are you going to put him in the expected lineups as well as Kane?
Yeah.
Okay,
Davies played 90 minutes last night, so I know he hasn't got really many alternatives in there anyway. And it is possible that we have seen it before, where players have played 90 on a Thursday and then started again on the weekend. But I do suspect that at least 2 or 3 of these injuries are of the Europa League variety and not actual medical problems.
Good stuff. All right, let's go on to Liverpool. So we know just how many injuries they've had, but it sounds like they might be getting a couple of players back, and big players as well. One of them being Trent Alexander-Arnold. So obviously not a lot of people, but I'd say some people I've seen discussing like getting Nico Williams in, for example. So do you think he's going to be back this week, or is it case if he's not, he'll definitely be back next week?
He's got a chance for the squad according to Klopp. This is Alexander-Arnold. Him and Keita are the only ones from that injured contingent, and I mean the injured contingent who've been out for a while or weren't available for Ajax in midweek. Alexander-Arnold and Keita are the only ones who've got a chance of recovering this weekend. They've both rejoined team training today. They're going to be assessed before that Wolves match. Klopp did say they've got a chance to be in the squad, but sort of was a bit more cautious about whether they would start or certainly last 90 minutes. So maybe he was hinting that they would be in the match day 18 and possibly as a substitute. I did see the Express report that Alexander-Arnold's going to be fast-tracked back to the team. So I think he obviously over Keita would be the one they'd rush back, because Keita's got this just chronic injury problems, and they just run the risk of aggravating them again. But yeah, Trent, if it's not this weekend, it'll be game week 12. And I wouldn't surprise him to see him on the bench at the very least against Wolves. Yeah, as for the rest, I think I've alluded to it there. Klopp said he wasn't expecting anybody back apart from those two. So we assume that means the likes of Thiago, Alisson as well, both of whom had been ruled out previously for a longer period. So we thought that was the case. We also assume it means Milner, who came off last weekend with a muscle problem and then wasn't in the squad against Ajax. We also assume that means Shaqiri as well. What we don't know is if he's talking about Robertson or Henderson. I suspect not, because he was talking about players who were back, and both of those players played against Ajax. I think it was on Tuesday, and they picked up knocks or just minor problems. Klopp sort of acknowledged it today without discussing it. He said they've had some niggles after the game against Ajax. Didn't mention Robertson or Henderson by name. Previously in the week after that win over Ajax, he'd said that he thinks they're going to be okay. So again, we're in the dark a bit over whether they're going to feature. They haven't trained properly yet. I think they had a couple of rest days or recovery sessions after the Champions League. I think they'll be training this afternoon. So one of those where you'll be looking out for training ground photos again for word on Robertson or Henderson. But as I say, not serious by the sounds of it. And Klopp was positive on Tuesday night after the 1-0 win over Ajax, and hopefully they're both okay.
Yeah, I watched that. I don't really remember Henderson getting a knock, but maybe I just completely missed it. Obviously he did because you've mentioned it, but I don't remember seeing it. But Robertson was very clear. He got a lot of strapping during the game. I think it was just before half time or something like that. But he had a lot of strapping on, but he seemed to just play fine then, so it didn't seem like a big issue.
He finished the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's a good sign in itself. So
here's my only question for you for Liverpool. What's the name of the goalkeeper that's going to be playing instead of Alisson? Queeveen. I thought I'd just test you. This is the one good thing about living in Ireland. You get to know the Irish names. Queeveen Kelleher, I think. But I will happily be told by any Irish people if I've got that wrong. So
Klopp was called him Queefer this morning, but I suspect that's a Daesh-esque bastardisation of his name.
I mean, when I first moved to Ireland, I used to pronounce the names as they were written, and I'll tell you now, you sound like an idiot. You sound like an absolute idiot. So not you, I mean I did. So yeah, we'll move on for that, just in case there's lots of Irish people watching.
He was actually mentioned Kelleher, but I'll refer to him by surname in the press conference, and he said that Klopp says that there's not a lot of reasons I could mention to say he won't start against Wolves, so it sounds like he's going to keep his place over Adrian.
Yeah, decent, and yeah, it was looked pretty assured, to be honest. Didn't look out of place at all, so he did really well. As I've found on loads of the Irish radio stations, we've been talking about him lots since that game. Okay, moving on. Man United. Rashford was the one he's had this shoulder niggle injury, like knock. I don't know. It keeps flaring up, and it did again in the last game in the Champions League against PSG. Has Ollie given us anything clear cut about him?
Not really. not 100%. He's been training anyway. Solskjaer said not fully. Now they were playing, I think, on Wednesday, is that right, against PSG? So they hadn't had much training anyway. But he did say he was hopeful of having him involved. And this is a recurring bulletin from Solskjaer on a Friday. Really, this is it's just copy and paste stuff from him, where he says a player is doubtful. We don't know. They haven't trained properly, but we're hopeful, and then they play. So I'm expecting that to be the case for Rashford. The one thing you would have at the back of your mind is that they've got to get a result against Leipzig next week. So he might look to preserve a body or two for that, but they can't afford to fall too behind in the Premier League. And West Ham away is not a simple task these days. It's they're above United at the table, and they're on a bit of a winning streak as well. So I think he should be fine. Might just manage his minutes a bit. Other than that, it's very serene. The picture at United, I think they've just got Luke Shaw, who's confirmed out, and everyone else is fine.
Yeah, I think given that Cavani now seems to be playing up front quite a bit more, or he has at least last couple, I guess they could play Martial left, and Greenwood did get some minutes against PSG as well, so he could play right, but my money would be on Rashford just playing again. Like, the injury can't be that bad if he keeps playing every time it flares up, so maybe it's one of those that in the long term he'll have to get it sorted, but I would put my money on him playing. Let's go to Man City. So I think, obviously, every week we're trying to guess the lineup. Given how the rotation has got, I mean, you tell me if you disagree with this, right? And let me see if I can guess your predicted lineup. Mendy left back, Walker right back, Laporte and Diaz. but you're worried about Stones, potentially Stones. And then I would say front three, Mahrez, Mahrez, Jesus. And then you're wavering on Sterling. Am I right?
You've summed that up beautifully. That's exactly where I'm at in terms of the City team news. I haven't finalised it yet. I need to watch Pep in full, but I'm going to take a wild guess and suggest there's nothing helpful in that either. The only thing he mentioned today was about Aguero. He's back involved now and feeling better in Pep's words. So could be back in the matchday squad. But I think given that Jesus was rested in midweek, along with De Bruyne, along with Mahrez, you expect that to Jesus to be back up front again against Fulham, and Aguero to be gradually weaned in over Christmas, I think. So yeah, I think again a bit like United and a bit like Chelsea. Not many injuries to report, I think, at the moment. I think Ake came back in midweek; he was on the bench as well. So I think they've got a fully fit squad now. If Aguero's back in the reckoning.
Yeah. What's your? I know you're obviously going to decide, and you have to listen properly. Right now, where are you swaying with Sterling? Because I think the main difference between this Champions League game and the previous one was Torres also started, whereas he didn't the week before. He got rested. And I can't find the quote now, but Pep did talk about Sterling. I think he must have got asked something about why he's not been playing. He basically said he's been great for them or something for ages, right? And that he's always talking to his players. So, I mean, that sounded a little bit more confident to me if I was a Sterling owner.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards him starting. I mean, being benched for 3 game weeks in a row, that would be, I think, almost unprecedented. I know Pep's mind doesn't work like that, and he's not bothered about neat patterns or anything like that. But I did see a report in the Athletic which suggested, I don't know how true this is, but a training ground source said that benchings for Laporte and Sterling last weekend were kind of a message to them to book their ideas up. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But he was, as you said, he was asked about him today, and as you'd expect, he gave the stock answer whenever he's asked about any of his players. There's been a few exceptions in the past, but like maybe Mendy or Sane. He gave positive words about Sterling and how he's going to be a very important player for them for the rest of the season. So I'm leaning towards him starting this weekend. But you never know. You never know with him whether he's seen enough of Sterling in midweek to start him over the abundance of players they've got. I mean,
Torres has been good as well.
Yeah, Torres has been very good. Yeah, and Foden hasn't started any Premier League match, I think, since game week 5 or something like that.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, 5 benches in a row. Of course, he can play on the left as well. But I'm leaning towards Sterling starting.
Yeah, I think for people asking about Cancelo in the chat, I think my money is on him not starting. The only thing I will say about him as a long-term pick is he's obviously rotating in because of the Champions League. They're not going to have Champions League over Christmas. There's only one more game now in the group stages, so potentially he could see some minutes. But you're always gonna have that thought in the back of your mind that Mendy can start. It doesn't mean that Mendy's going to start every game over Christmas. In fact, I would say he probably wouldn't. So Cancelo will see some minutes. It's just probably not going to be this week when you really want him to play, especially with the Villa and Newcastle thing. So we'll see. It could still happen, but given what's happened with the Champions League and stuff, it seems a bit unlikely. Let's go to Everton. So again, talked about a few squads that are kind of almost fully fit. I mean, Everton are looking pretty good, apart from the fact they've not got any fullbacks. Is that right? There's no other injuries, I don't think, is there?
No, just a long-term one to Gabamon as well. But yeah, it's just Coleman and Dina who are still out. Coleman's back in training, doing individual work. He spotted on the training ground today, and some people thought he might be fit for this, but Ancelotti was unequivocal. He's ruled him out of this one. Was asked about Nkunku, who a lot of people hoped would start last weekend. He's a 4 million defender. But Ancelotti said that he couldn't fit him in the squad. That he wanted to play Iwobi at left wing back, and that by playing 2 midfielders there isn't such a bad thing because they've got the centre half on either side to cover for them. Still tipped up on Nkunku to possibly feature over Christmas. He said they've got a lot of games coming up, and he will have time, so game time. So he might make an appearance over the festive period, but he's certainly, unfortunately, not someone you're going to be able to count on, even though Dini is out, because as Ancelotti said today, he's still young, he's still inexperienced, and he needs to work more. So it doesn't sound good in terms of relying on him for starts regularly, week in, week out, until Dini is back.
Yeah, I think Everton will be really interesting over Christmas because the fixtures get really bad after Burnley. They're going to play Chelsea, Leicester, Arsenal, and City all over December, which was bad enough without Luka Dean and Coleman into the equation as well. So be interesting to see what happens with people like with Calvert-Lewin and James Rodriguez and see how quickly perhaps people jump off. But yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe Coleman will be back soon enough if he's at least doing some kind of training at the moment. West Ham. So obviously, Antonio came off after 45 minutes. Came off at half time last game week, and I wondered at the time if it was a precaution or whether he just done him in again. And it sounds like he's out. Right, he's just out. Moyes has ruled him out, I think.
Yeah, he's going to miss this one. Yeah, looking back, that was probably what happened. Moyes does say it's a separate issue, so it's not a recurrence of the previous problem that he had, but it is his hamstring again. So he's had niggling problems with those over the years. And it's yet another injury that's going to rule him out. Doesn't know how long for, Moyes yet. Says hasn't got time for him. Doesn't think it's too bad, but we'll definitely miss this one. So you'll get Sebastian Haller coming back in, who probably felt aggrieved of being benched in the first place after scoring against Sheffield United. The only other note from West Ham is that Yarmolenko was back in training after recovering from COVID, but he'll not threaten the starting 11 anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm sure it will just be Haller leading the line again. We'll do Wolves. So obviously, we know Jimenez is going to be out for a while, and obviously wish him the best and hope hope he's back soon. Obviously, at this point, we just no idea when it's going to be. In terms of Wolves, do you think that? I mean, they haven't really got an abundance of strikers to choose from. They've got Fabio Silva, but he is very young. And judging by, I was listening to, I can't remember his name, one of the Athletic journalists, Wolves guy, Tim Spears. Yeah. I mean, I remember him saying early on when they signed him, he wasn't really there to be playing that often, like maybe in the Cups or whatever. So do you think he is going to just start leading the line? Did Nuno really give us any kind of indication about what's going to happen with the formation or anything like that?
Well, Nuno's is another one I have to watch all the way through. These are the ones, the 130 batch, I tend to just get the headlines from. I've seen Ancelotti's, I've seen Lampard's all the way through, seen Solskjaer's. But the likes of Nuno I'll watch later in the day. There wasn't any hint from the transcribed quotes I've seen so far. Now, he did give him a big boost of confidence by bringing him on for Jimenez so early in the game against Arsenal. But I would suggest that Arsenal, who are struggling for goals, is a lot easier game to come into than someone like Liverpool away. So I'm speculating whether, and I think I've seen a lot of Wolves journalists doing this as well, speculating whether it might be a false nine or a Traore or a Neto opponents playing centrally. Last year when Wolves went to Liverpool away in December, that was the last match that Jimenez didn't start, funnily enough, coincidentally. And it was Neto up front with Jota in a 3-5-2, or Jota, I should say. So there is the possibility of that happening, particularly if he wants to bolster out in midfield and bring in Neves maybe with Dendoncker and Moutinho. So I don't think it's a given that Silva starts against Liverpool, but I think he's going to start more games than not, probably over Christmas when they're being out. It's just maybe not this one. There's also we saw Wolves play 4-2-3-1 for the last 2 game weeks. There's the option of going back to a wing-back system for this if he thinks that a third centre-half is needed against that Liverpool attack. So the likes of Kilman and Saiss could get a recall. Saiss, incidentally, is back in training from after recovering from COVID. So, a bit of uncertainty in terms of how he's going to set up for this, because usually the formation is very easy to predict for Wolves, but we've seen him deviate from that 3-4-3, 3-5-2 recently.
Yeah, I do wonder if they'll switch back now. They have got really hard fixtures to come as well. They're another team that's going into a really bad run over Christmas. So, we'll see what happens. I can't remember if it was the home or the away game, but I remember watching Wolves against Liverpool last year, and Traore just had Robertson on toast. Like, he was just constantly past him. I think Robertson even mentioned it on I think it was the Peter Crouch podcast, something like that, how tough it was to deal with Traore, which you can imagine is true. So maybe they'll go to 3-5-2 somehow, but I think it just spells more minutes, doesn't it, for Podence and Neto and players like that. I think they're the ones that are probably going to benefit the most from it. All right, let's move on to Leicester. So Ricardo's back, played some minutes. Obviously, Justin owners have been, I wouldn't say worrying, but they've been thinking about this for the last 10 game weeks, and they've still got him playing last week. Do you think he's going to come straight back into the league? It's surely got to be a few more games or a few more minutes elsewhere before he starts in the Premier League, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's he only got 45 minutes, as you say, against Zoya on Thursday, and we saw what happened with Soyuncu, who there was three of them brought back from injury in that Europa League tie on Thursday night. Pereira, Soyuncu, and Ndidi. All of them were, I think, originally penciled in for brief runouts. So it was always the plan to give Pereira 45, I think, or possibly an hour. I think actually Rogers did mention that. He said it was originally going to be, I think, about an hour. And then, but given the conditions, I think it was a bit slippery underfoot. And what happened to Soyuncu, they decided to bring him off at half time. And Didi similarly was brought off after 55 minutes, I think. And Soyuncu didn't even make it that far. He suffered a recurrence of his groin problem. So I think with all three, I would probably expect them to get the next Europa League game. Certainly in the case of Ndidi and Pereira, remains to be seen how serious Soyuncu's injury is. And I think if you're worried about Justin, he should be fine for now because Castagna isn't even back. I think he was due back ahead of that Liverpool game, but suffered a recurrence. And the last we heard from Rogers, which was on Wednesday, he was still injured and still being assessed. So we were due to hear from him today, I think, while we were on air. And I do wonder if that's just an embargoed set of quotes from last night, which won't offer much information. But again, I'll check those out once I'm finished with this. But Justin, I am fully confident we'll start this weekend, and he'll be challenged more when both Castagna and Pereira are fully fit, and that might not be for a while.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely going to start, although I am fully hoping he concedes again, just like last week against Fulham, although Sheffield United probably less chance of that happening. I think we can probably go quickly through Chelsea, because I think everyone's fit, right? Which it hasn't happened for them for a while. They're looking really good. Not only are they fully fit, but they've also got a ridiculous deep squad as well. I guess the question here is, first of all, do you see Giroud starting after 4 goals? And do you think we're going to see Pulisic maybe start and Werner through the middle anytime soon? Or do you think it's just going to be Werner on the left for a couple more games? Because Pulisic's another one they're not going to want to rush back, are they, and start playing 90 minutes every week?
Yeah, he's had recurring problems with that hamstring, hasn't he? So I think this weekend, certainly, Pulisic will be back on the bench and it'll be Werner on the left. It's just who starts through the middle. Is it going to be Abraham, who has himself been in decent nick, I think? Or Giroud, how do you overlook someone who scored 4 goals in midweek? So, yeah, it was asked about this Lampard, and he did talk at length about the qualities of both players, as you would expect, didn't give anything away as to who's going to start. Even said that to the report. He said, "I'm not going to give you my team sheet now." So, yeah, I suspect with there being Leeds who are, a bit more of a pressing unit, more energy about them, he might go for the mobility of Abraham in this, which is harsh on Giroud, but Abraham has been the one who's been leading the line in the Premier League over the last few game weeks, and Lampard's barely touched that side, and things have been going pretty well. So I still think Abraham's the slight favourite, but yeah, Giroud certainly put himself in contention for this.
I fully agree. I mean, Giroud has been putting himself into contention for years, and he never gets regular starts. So I think the game just suits Abraham versus Giroud. I think they're not going to start pumping in crosses versus Leeds. I don't expect. So we'll see. Just because the chat is still talking about me and my love for Arsenal, we'll just do Arsenal next. Even though I did coincidentally have them at the bottom of the list, not for any real reason, but there we go. So let's go on to Arsenal. I think Partey is the big thing from them, right? That Arteta's talked about.
Yeah, we're waiting a rehashed medical bulletin that Arsenal send out every week. I suspect that might be later today or tomorrow. Arteta was talking about Partey on, I think it was Wednesday, the pre-match press conference before the Europa League game, and he said that he was really pushing hard for a recall. I think he himself wants to play straight away. And I think he's been doing, being reintegrated into training. I think he's going to join full team training today and tomorrow. So he's got a chance. But Arteta was a bit cagey on him. He's saying that we've got to protect him. We've got to be careful. And the fact that they rested, I think, 3 of the regulars in midweek. Xhaka wasn't involved at all. Ceballos just came off the bench. Willock was rested as well. And El Neni's back as well from COVID. He got an hour, probably just for rhythm, on Thursday night against Rapid Vienna. So they're well stocked for options there. I know Partey's probably head and shoulders above any of them. But and it's a North London derby. But if there's any doubt about him, then they might not risk him. But he's got a chance for the match day squad anyway. And I think otherwise, fairly quiet. I think it's we saw Chambers, Mari come back on Thursday night, and I think it's just the suspended Pepe and Martinelli, who's out. David Luiz should be okay. He got a cut in the head of that incident with Jimenez, but it wasn't concussion, and Arteta thinks he's going to be okay.
Cool, yeah. Maybe we'll party back. They'll start scoring some goals. Who knows? We'll wait and see what happens if he does start. There's a few teams there, but I think there's only really one or two with major news. So I think Crystal Palace, Zaha is available, but I guess if he's been self isolating, he wouldn't have been training that much. So he'd have to be doing individual stuff at home. So do you think he just? I mean, can they really do without him? I guess is the question. So he's probably going straight back into the team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'll come straight back in. I think he was tested at the beginning of the week, retested. So I think he's had like the best part of a full week to prepare for this. And as you say, they've been sorely lacking him. We've seen actually what's happened last week when we turned them over, and then before that as well. So they really struggle for goals without him. They've got a horrible record without when he's not playing. And yeah, I think he'll come straight back on the team. I think they've got Milivojevic back for this as well. He was both suspended and ill. He was self-isolating as well after being testing positive for COVID, but he's back in contention. So I think injury-wise, it's the longer terms we knew about, including Ferguson. I think he's been back on the training ground this week.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, Martin Kelly, I think, has been added to that list, but he was peripheral anyway. So yeah.
There can't be many more. There can't be many people still left with Ferguson in their sides. But if you are, maybe the light is at the end of the tunnel now. We'll have to wait and see in about another 4 to 6 weeks. All right, let's just rattle through the rest. I'll go through them in the order I've got them here. So Fulham up next. Anything major there?
No, same as last week. No new injuries, and Kenny Tete is still out, I think, along with Congolo. So yeah, pretty quiet.
Good stuff. Burnley.
It's always busy at the Dyche's press conferences. There's always something to report. Cork's still out, and Phil Bardsley's still touch and go. I don't think he's going to recover. I don't think he's got a rib issue. Positive news elsewhere, though. Pope's been declared fit. He's now free of the concussion protocol, so he'll almost certainly come back in for Peacock Fowl unless there's any repercussions that we've not heard about. They've also had Stevens, Brady, and Brownhill back in training, so they could feature. Brownhill certainly, you'd expect him to go straight back in. Dyche said he'll have to be careful with Goodmanson. I don't think it's a fresh injury or anything like that. He was on the bench last weekend, I think unused against Man City. That just because he's so injury prone and he's always picking up usually calf problems, Dyche was saying they just have to be careful with how involved he is on a week-to-week basis. Said he was touch and go, but I think that's more about minutes rather than any kind of fitness issue. It's just they just don't want to exacerbate any underlying problems when we're going into a busy period in December. And I think that's it. Pope back's obviously the main headline there.
Yeah, cool. And Brighton as well. Obviously, I guess there'll still be a few more pay owners out there. Looks like he went off with a bruised ego last week, but think he's going to be back?
It's tough to say because this is he's been pictured on the training ground this week, but he's been apparently, according to Potter, just working with the physios, so he's doing individual work. Potter said he has a chance of featuring in training on Saturday. So this is the Monday night game, so that does give him an extra 2 days to recover. So I think he's down as 75 in FPL, which is probably about right. So he's got a chance, but we do know that Lallana isn't going to play in this. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. And I think Davy Proper isn't quite match fit yet either. Apart from that, I think it's pretty much a clean bill of health. The fact that they've got Welbeck now does kind of help them. They don't have to rush Maupay back. I think beforehand, they were really stretched for options up top, especially when Connolly wasn't involved. But now that they've got Welbeck and Connolly, both of them played fairly decently against Liverpool. And they've got Trossard back as well from injury. They can go without Maupay, and he hasn't really done a great deal to warrant an instant recall. As you said there, the bruised ego. I think he is known for this kind of tantrum behaviour. So wouldn't be surprised if he missed out, I think.
Cool. Who we got? We've got Southampton. Danny Ings. There's a bit of news on him, right? Obviously, he's not going to be ready this week, but perhaps soonish.
He'll be ready this week. He's back in training. Hasn't said he's going to be assessed. It might come too soon. I think he's been out for, I think it's over a month now with this knee problem. So I listened to Aston Huttle this morning. This was the first press conference. There'll probably be more comments coming up later, maybe, which might shed more light on it. But he's going to be in the reckoning, possibly for a place on the bench. I think it might come too soon for a start, certainly. And they've been doing all right without him, certainly scoring plenty when he hasn't been there. But if it isn't this weekend, then it sounds like it's going to be game week 12. So another a nice forward to consider over the Christmas period. We saw not necessarily last Christmas. Last Christmas he was benched, I think, once or twice. But when football restarted in June, Ings just played through the entire period, started every game, I think. So I think he's not quite the risk he was previously in terms of muscle injuries. I think the good thing is with this what problem he's got now, it's a knee problem. So it was impact, I think, rather than anything muscular. So those are the injuries you worry about over Christmas, your hamstrings and groins and things like that. So we might see a lot of them at Christmas, and another forward to consider in the mid-price pool.
Yeah, dropped to 8.3, and the good thing is, Hasenhüttl last year was very open about when he was going to bench him, so you kind of had a little bit of pre-warning, so that was good. Okay, who have we got left? By my reckoning, we have three teams: Leeds, West Brom, and Sheffield United. I think that's the last three. So I don't think there's anything major there.
No, I'll start with Leeds. I think they're probably the main source of interest of that lot. It's pretty much the same. I think Forshaw, Shackleton, Hernandez still out. Llorente is back in training, but Bielsa says he doesn't really want to use him straight away. Wants to get him to play for the under-23s first before he's back in the first team, or he's certainly in contention for a start. Apart from that, I think nothing to report. Harrison was flagged. I know he's sort of semi-popular budget midfield option. He came off. He seemed to limp off last weekend against Everton, but no mention of him in Bielsa's press conference. And Bielsa's usually pretty good with team news. He tends to be quite honest about who's injured and who's not. And I think Harrison has been pictured in midweek, I think, just on training ground and around the club and stuff like that. So we assume he's fine. Sheffield United, I haven't actually heard from Wilder yet. I saw McGoldrick was doing his press conference, but I haven't actually seen Wilder's transcribed presser. It might have happened when we were on air, so I'll come back to that. West Brom, we have got a bit of news from Bilic. Townsend, who's been a regular at left wing back recently, he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. So that'll roll him out for all of the Christmas period, pretty much. And then I think apart from that, it's just Gibbs and Livermore who are back from self-isolation. They were both positive COVID cases. Bilic says the club's now free of coronavirus. I think it's just more match fitness with those two, because Gibbs would be the natural understudy for Townsend if he is ready. Sheffield United. I've
got it actually.
Have you? Good.
Yeah. So I think this happened last week as well. It came out while we were on. So this is obviously just the headline stuff they've put on Twitter, but it says we'll give him, Ender Stevens he's talking about, the opportunity of being involved in the squad. There's a chance. And then Ampadu's very similar. He's been training well. He's another one we'll make a late decision on. So potentially going to come back into the side. I think they've got pretty good fixtures as well coming up. I'd have to double check that. But Ampadu quite cheap, maybe playing in midfield at times. Someone said in the chat, you need to pay your electricity bill, Neale.
It's gone like apocalyptic dark here. I don't know what's happening. I think we've had a massive rainstorm and it's gone very, very dark. Biblical floods.
Someone else said you couldn't write it because I think when you were talking about Southampton, you said they're going to shed some light. So that went down very well as well. So yeah, anyway, that's it. So you can, we'll leave you to it so you can go and turn on a light, or I don't know,
light a candle.
Yeah, light a candle, something like that. But yes, thank you very much everyone for watching and listening. If you're listening on podcast as well, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And we will be back. I think I'm trying to count down to when we're back to weird week. So next week's a normal week, so we'll be back next Friday. Although there is a Friday deadline, and then after that it's there's midweek game weeks and stuff. So we are going to still do these, but exactly when we're going to figure out closer to the time. So thanks very much for watching. Neale, thank you very much as well, as always, for all your info.
No problem. Thanks, Andy.
Good luck, everyone, with especially decisions around Aston Villa players. And we will. I'll be back tomorrow on this channel for Breakfast Club at 9:30 in the morning with Zofar. So it's about 9:30 till 10. So make sure to join us for that. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell, etc. And yeah, good luck. We'll see you soon.